The ending of Life of Pi is not a twist ending. It can seem like it's pulling the rug out from under us and we're faced with a harsh reality, but it's not that kind of movie. Instead, we're presented with two versions of the story and we get to choose which one we want to believe. We're talking all about it this week in Caden's Movie Club. Spoilers ahead if you haven't seen it, beat it! And if it sounds like I'm making this up, let's take a look at an early scene where this entire premise is set up for the audience.
You said you had a story that would make me believe in God.
As for God, I can only tell you my story. You'll decide for yourself what you believe.
Fair enough.
Now, when a character claims that the story will make you believe in God, it might be easy to think this is a religious movie, but right up front, the story lets us know that it doesn't really have anything to do with religion. Because by the time Pi is a teenager, he's a member of three different religions: Hinduism, Islam, and Catholicism.
You only need to convert to three more religions, Piscine, and you will spend your life on holiday.
It's ironic and even funny because the beliefs of these religions contradict. It's a kind of fallacy to believe in both at the same time.
You cannot follow three different religions at the same time, Piscine.
Why not?
Because believing in everything at the same time is the same as not believing in anything at all.
But Pi is not concerned with the specific dogmas of these religions. And just to make sure we're all on the same page, a dogma is a set of principles that is set down by an authority as incontrovertible truth. What Pi cares about is believing in something greater than himself. Having contradicting beliefs doesn't bother him as long as those beliefs encourage him to look at life as a loving gift from a higher power, regardless of what that higher power is.
I'd much rather have you believe in something I don't agree with than to accept everything blindly. And that begins with thinking rationally.
I would like to be baptized.
So Pi's story is not about religion. It is about having faith in something that isn't tangible or explainable, but that acts as an ultimate force for hope in life. Let's look at the first version of Pi's story. Pi and his family own a zoo in India, but they decide to sell the animals and move to Canada. On the way, tragedy strikes and the ship sinks. Pi loses his entire family and is now stuck on a lifeboat with a zebra, hyena, orangutan, and a tiger. The hyena kills the zebra and the orangutan, and then the tiger kills the hyena. This all happens by the midpoint of the movie. So for the entire second half of the story, it's just Pi trying to survive at sea while sharing the boat with a tiger. After 227 days, they finally land in Mexico. The tiger walks into the jungle, never to be seen again. Some local fishermen then find and rescue Pi. It's a miraculous story. How could a boy share a lifeboat with a predator like a fully grown Bengal tiger and live to tell the tale? It's so incredible that the author Pi is telling the story to is having a hard time believing it. And the author isn't the only one. When Pi was rescued, two investigators representing the company that owned the ship visited him. Trying to settle insurance claims, they need to get a story from Pi to report back to their company, but the story Pi gave them was unbelievable.
So, what did you do?
I told them another story. Four of us survived.
The cook and the sailor were already aboard. The cook threw me a lifebuoy and pulled me aboard, and mother held on to some bananas and made it to the lifeboat.
There's no visual element to the second version, it's only offered in a monologue by Pi. The zebra is replaced by a sailor that Pi's family met on the boat. The hyena is replaced by the ship's cook. The orangutan is replaced by Pi's mother, which means that the tiger would be Pi himself. The story plays out similarly, but a new picture is painted. Just as the hyena killed the zebra and the orangutan, the cook did the same, except this time, he attacked the sailor and Pi's mother. And just as the tiger then killed the hyena, Pi did the same to the cook. Pi is then left alone on the boat for months until he lands and is rescued in Mexico. After hearing both versions of the story, Pi then leaves it to the investigators and the author and us as the audience to make the decision.
I've told you two stories about what happened out on the ocean. Neither explains what caused the sinking of the ship, and no one can prove which story is true and which is not. In both stories, the ship sinks, my family dies, and I suffer.
True.
So which story do you prefer?
Neither story changes the outcome of Pi's life, but what happened in between feels different depending on which version of the story we choose to believe. But before we make our decision about which story we prefer, it might help to consider what each story represents. Early on, Pi tells the author that faith is a house with many rooms, and that doubt is on every floor. This is the concept that is presented to us right before we meet Richard Parker for the first time. Richard Parker is, of course, the tiger we've been talking about. In this scene, Pi tries to feed the tiger.
No! What are you thinking?
Animals have souls. I have seen it in their eyes.
When you look into his eyes, you are seeing your own emotions reflected back at you. Nothing else.
To make sure Pi never risks his life by going close to the tiger again, his father shows him what the tiger is capable of. So, even before we're on the ship, the tiger is meant to represent something in the story, but there's always multiple ways of looking at it. For Pi, the tiger could be faith. It's a living thing, and doubt is a natural part of it. He wants to believe that there is something more to the tiger than animal instinct, but it's a risk. For Pi's father, who believes religion is darkness, this is foolishness. Trust what you can know and see. He's learned a lesson that may have saved his life, but life now fails to hold much meaning for him. Let's jump to the scene in which the tiger is revealed on the lifeboat. The hyena has attacked both the zebra and the orangutan. In the other version of the story, this would mean the cook has attacked the sailor and Pi's mother. In both scenarios, Pi is furious, and then this happens.
Come on! Come on! Come on!
The cinematography here is very deliberate. Pi stands on top of the tarp and the tiger shoots out from under it, but because of the position of the shot, it looks as if the tiger is leaping out of Pi. So what does this mean? Because we've established the tiger can represent multiple things, it's really up to you. This could be interpreted as the raw animal instinct coming out of Pi. As he gives in to that emotion, he takes the life of another person and becomes more animalistic. This could also be seen as faith leaving Pi. Having witnessed the cook's evil actions and now having that evil brought out in himself, Pi no longer holds any faith. It's now something to fear. To believe is now dangerous. Or maybe you have an entirely different interpretation. And with every major beat of the movie, we go through a similar process of choice. The kind of faith that the story is talking about is never a simple choice. It's not a decision that you make at the beginning of your life and stick to forever. In this story, faith is very much alive. It changes and reacts to the circumstances around it. Sometimes it's weak, sometimes it's strong, and sometimes it's ambiguous. But in any of those instances, we ultimately still have the choice as the viewer to believe what we want about Pi and the tiger. With Richard Parker dominating the lifeboat, Pi is forced to float on a makeshift raft. The tiger stays hidden under the tarp, and when Pi looks under it, we're brought back to that same question posed earlier. Is there a soul in those eyes? Or is it just a product of the natural world? Is Pi looking at a representation of his faith? Or is he looking at a reflection of what he has become? Is he seeing a higher power or himself? When Richard Parker jumps into the ocean to catch fish, Pi has the opportunity to kill the tiger and remove that danger. But he chooses not to. Is this him choosing not to abandon faith despite the position it has put him in? Or is Pi choosing to embrace his animal instinct so that he can survive? You can look at any scene from either perspective and let those questions help determine which version of the story you prefer. Maybe it will be an obvious choice to you, maybe it will change from scene to scene. So by the end, if we hold up the stories side by side, they both result in severe tragedy. They both end with the main character miraculously surviving that tragedy. And in both stories, the thing that kept him alive was Richard Parker. And this is where the true difference lies. You get to choose whether Richard Parker was there or not. You get to choose if the story represents a triumph of faith or a triumph of human instinct. Neither stories can be proven, you just have to make that choice. Last week we discussed Little Miss Sunshine, and in the same way that the circumstances for those characters didn't change, but their perspective did, Life of Pi does something similar. The unfortunate truth is the choice to have faith in something doesn't protect you from life's tragedies. But choosing to believe that there is something greater, whatever it may be, is for many people a daily act of hope. And this is why I believe Life of Pi is a hopeful story. Belief is not something that happens to you, it is a choice. And no matter how strong or how absent that belief might feel when we wake up in the morning, the truth is that we still have to make that choice to believe or not every single day. And I want to acknowledge here that we all experience art on a personal level. The story of Life of Pi resonates with my personal experience and belief system, but you might feel differently, and that's okay. I think what's important, and hopefully this movie club is helping us to do this, is that we find ways to respectfully articulate why stories do not resonate with us. So whatever you felt about the movie, I'd love to hear your thoughts either way. And next week, we'll be taking a look at a movie that dives really deep into the concept of choices and how whether or not we make hopeful choices can have ripple effects throughout our entire lives. Everything Everywhere All at Once is essentially about a family trying to do their taxes. It ends up going into a lot of interesting directions from there, but at its core, this is about a family going through a difficult moment. It's a moment that causes them to reevaluate their own lives, the decisions they've made, and their relationship with each other. It just so happens they deliver that story through the concept of the multiverse. We'll discuss next week how the multiverse is just a narrative tool and doesn't need to overwhelm anybody, But in the meantime, here's some questions to keep in mind while you watch. Why do you think the filmmakers chose to use the multiverse concept to tell this story? What do you think is the main question the story is asking? There's two symbols presented in the movie, the everything bagel and the googly eye. What do you think each of these represents and why? So let's chat about Life of Pi in the comments, and I'll see you back here next week to discuss everything everywhere all at once. If you want to stay in the know about Movie Club, you know where to go.